Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's episode I'm rebuilding my brake calipers, fronts and the rears. Just ordered some seals and some replacement caliper pistons that have arrived, so I'm going to tackle these off right now. In an old episode I had painted these and they've been just sitting since. All my seals and everything in here, since the rears are pretty bad, I ended up taking those pistons back a long time ago. Just looking at these, I know these have to be replaced. But first we're going to tackle off the fronts because those are a little bit easier to do than the rears. First I'm going to set up my compressor and see if I can knock those pistons out with some compressed air. Get yourself a towel or something just to kind of absorb the impact of that piston so we don't damage anything. Undo, screw, get yourself some compressed air and see if we can move it. And let's see. Here is the piston that we removed. I kind of just did a quick cleanup on it and there's no pitting or anything. I took out the other one and there is a ever so slight area here with some pitted rust. To replace it completely, probably not. Eventually this may cause some faster wear on that ring, the seal on the inside, but for how small this is compared to what I've seen online, there are much worse situations to be in with this caliper piston. Still got to clean it up a little bit, but this one doesn't need to be replaced at this very moment, but the two are looking pretty good for the fronts. There's going to be this squared off ring seal that you need to get off out of here, so just get yourself a little tool to pop that out. You're looking to see if there's any damage on this squared off lip on the inside here. If there isn't, and which I don't see there is any on here, we can go ahead and reinstall this and not worry about any issues for the future. Alright, so with that done now, I'm going to go ahead and start reinstalling the seals. The squared off seal will be first, so I'm going to use my brake fluid to lubricate those seals. Let's get this guy in there. Alright. Alright, that ring is nicely in there. Once we get the piston cleaned up, we can go ahead and lay some brake fluid on there, nicely lubricating it up, getting it ready for the seal. Alright, go ahead and get that seal even. A little coating won't hurt. Alright. To slide it over, alright, slide it all the way up to where it sits and seats in the top. Alright, once you get it there, take it, fold it back till it looks like that. We want to re-pop this out of its channel that it sits in, that squared off top. Alright, get that out all the way around. Then once we're out, we're actually going to pull this bottom back a little bit. Okay, so we're basically hanging off the end here. Reason being is we're actually going to put this edge right there. We're going to sit it inside first. Okay, inside its position, inside that. And you can already see I'm already locked in. Like, it's so much easier to do it in that way. So now just make sure that we're seated all the way around, okay? And looking through the top. And here we are. Right, line it up. Make sure it's still seated nicely inside its positioning. Pull towards you, and this should be pretty easy. This should, if you get it nice and level, which I am not. I'd already done this on the other one and it went in like butter. Not the greatest tutorial, there it is. So that's going in. There it is. Oop. Ta-da! There you go. Just on its own, it just fit right in. And we're done. Moving on to the rears, these guys are going to be a lot more work when it comes to cleaning. When I did wash these out, I did not dry it off in here, and I've already have developed quite a bit of rust come back since. I'm going to take everything out, check out the internals here, see if everything is still salvageable. Alright, well, so we'll take out that rubber squared off seal on the inside here and see what the damage is. Quick blast with the air hose has cleaned up quite a bit already, actually. Before we even attempt to take out that circlip inside the housing in here, we first have to take off, or actually relief stress off that spring cover you see there in the dead center around that bolt. So what I'll do is use a deep socket that I have here and a C-clamp to kind of tighten that down. And I'm literally just looking to like rotate this about a half a rotation, no more, because we don't want to add too much stress to this because there's internal pieces here that could get damaged. Once I get that done, I need to get some pliers in there. Now I makeshift these pliers a few days back because I already tested this out just so I could prep for this video. Those worked, but they took forever. I used some old set of pliers and some nails and just welded those on. I invested in these, and hopefully these will help me out a lot more and definitely save the time. So it kind of looks like that. And then what I'll do next is I'll get my set of pliers in there and get in there and open it up. And with that circlip, we'll also take out that spring cover. And this little fella right here, there's our spring. Alright, inside there is our adjusting bolt. We'll have to get that out too. Dirty. So in the back there you can see that sleeve piston. If you give it really like a good smack like that, it should come out. Mine might be a little bit seized, so I'm going to throw some PB Blaster back there and see if it pops out. So since a good smack down didn't get that sleeve piston out, I had to start taking apart and loosening the brake lever, or the parking lever, sorry, and the return spring. I got that off. So we got this moving because this was actually stiff completely before. So it's kind of seized in there. So since I've actually just started loosening that up, the sleeve piston on the inside has actually started to move forward a little bit, so I'm going to just smack it on a rubber mat again and see if I can get it out. After a good long while, there it is. As you can see, it is filthy inside there. So with the amount of work so far, and let alone the rough shape that these rears are in, it probably honestly would be better just to have these replaced. But for the sake of this video, and the fact that I'm trying to do this as much of a budget as possible, I think I can still clean these up to get these in working order. Maybe down the line need to be replaced, but they will work for now. I got the return spring already off earlier, so I can go ahead and pull this bad boy out. It's ugly as well. This here is the parking lever, the cam assembly. Since everything is pretty much out, I can start cleaning up the inside. I'm going to get a wire wheel in there and just gently kind of scrape away any potential rust that is on the surface there, but we'll be as gentle as possible so we don't do any damage on the inside. Here are the internal components to the rears, both of them. Things that will be replaced for sure are these little ring seals as well. I'm just going to clean everything up here as best as I can. Polish out what needs to be polished out, and we can go ahead and start reinstalling this back onto those rear calipers. So everything cleaned up quite nicely, and I can go ahead and start reassembling the rear calipers. The brake lever on the back here, this piece right there, isn't in the best condition. There's a little bit of pitted rust. It probably explains why it was a little difficult to get that caliper apart, but I can go ahead now and start reassembling everything. Before we go ahead and continue, actually, I still have to get some components out of the old caliper pistons. There's about 4 pieces out of here I got to remove, so I'll start doing that. With this, you have to wear safety glasses. You should as well for when you're taking apart the old caliper pistons and whatnot, but this is important because this one is under a lot more tension here that you don't want this hitting you in the face. Woo! That hit my glasses, so I'm telling you, that is terrible in there, Lay. That was not in very good shape. Now that I have those parts cleaned up, I got my new caliper pistons here, and we can go ahead and first reassemble this. To get this in, I don't know, I haven't gone online or anything to look at this, but this actually worked for me quite nicely. When you look at this spring right here, and you put this on top, you really want to avoid having that circlip with those two openings be near that position where there's kind of a cutoff on the spring. So you want to be able to have it where it's flat, and just when you do compress this, you won't add any stress in these two areas here where this will catch and bind on the inside if you do have that issue. So just try and have it on this flat part here, not on that lip right there, and that should make it slide in a lot easier. Now what I've been using to make this slide in, we'll drop in the spring, we'll put in that washer, and we'll put in that clip. I've been using a 15mm socket, and I kind of just line it up by hand first. So like right now I've just kind of gently applied pressure on that circlip and that spring, kind of just keeping it as even as possible. And then from here, all I did was just alright. So late. That's the click that we wanted. And that's done. Two of them down. So the insides are cleaned out nicely. I can now go ahead and start reassembling the internal parts. And quickly, the first thing is just reassembling the parking lever, the cam assembly. So we'll put that guy on. Put the spring washer on. The nut. We'll get that out of the way for just a second. We'll get our caliper in here. And I got a brand new cam boot for the cam assembly. We'll get this coated in some brake fluid. You can use, and should probably use, like the recommended grease for it, but it's okay to use brake fluid. Nice new fit, nice and snug. So next thing, get the cam assembly and the parking lever all coated in brake fluid. And then we're going to put this inside. Alright, so that's in. Alright. There we go. Tighten that nut down. And let's get that spring back on there. Make sure you're wearing your glasses when you do this. There we go. Spring's on. Spring's functioning. Good. Alright, that's done there. Next we'll get the rod, the O-ring, and the sleeve piston prepped up. So same thing here. Brand new O-ring as well. I'm just going to coat this all in oil, not on oil, but brake fluid. Pop the O-ring on. Alright, make sure it's good. Get this all ready to go back inside. Next thing is to get this rod inside the parking lever opening there. So it's kind of hard, but you have to literally hold it. This is where that grease comes in hand if you do have it, because you can get it pretty straight up if you need to. But what you're going to do, if you're like me, is you're just going to take your caliper, hold it straight up, and take that sleeve piston and drop it in that way. Maybe. Yep. There we go. So, can't see it now, but hold on for a second. So we're back to sitting nicely down in there. And that was actually pretty easy. Next thing we have is the cup, the adjusting bolt, the bearing, the spacer, the adjusting spring, and the spring cover. So we'll need to reinstall these next. Get that coated. Grab your adjusting bolt with the cup on it and put it in the back there. Next, put that bearing in, put the washer in, the spring with kind of the cone shape, the smaller end, the bottom, just like an ice cream cone. Spring cover in, drop that in nicely. Next, we'll be ready for that circlip. So kind of get that circlip started in there. Use the pliers to kind of pinch it in there to kind of relieve that tension in there so it slides in easier. Don't worry about the angle of that spring cover right now. I'm just going to use a flat head screwdriver and kind of straighten it out, and then I'll show you what I'll do next. So we're pretty close to level. I have a 7/8 socket here that fits just perfectly down in there. Same thing like I did with the pistons, using a 7/8 socket here. I'm actually able just to click it just like that, and it's locked in its little groove down there. And this one is done. The last few things is getting the piston in and getting a new sleeve or a desk boot on there as well. Okay. Alright, same thing like we did with the fronts. Alright. That's good. Slide it all the way up. Slide it all the way back. Okay. Get it out. Okay, same thing. Get it hanging over the edge like that. There we go. Just grab the dust boot, kind of give it a tug. You can actually lift it and look around and see if you're in. After that, get the piston, kind of get it ready. It's so easy when it's like brand new. You can just tighten it with your finger all the way around. We're in nicely now. And tighten this down. And it jumped up nicely too. Well, there we are. These guys are now done. I'm working with these rears. I've actually kind of chipped away some of the paint. Yeah, I probably should have done it a little bit differently. Instead of initially doing that painting video a while back, I should have obviously taken everything out and then repainted it and then done this step like this. But if I need to, I can repaint these again. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap up this episode. The whole process was pretty educational for myself. It's the first time I did that, and doing those repairs actually really makes me feel better for the future. If I do have that problem, I should be able to bust that out a lot quicker. The rears, as you saw and as I mentioned earlier in the video, they should have been obviously replaced by either like a refurbished place that does brakes, but they're gonna work, I'm pretty sure. So as well guys, yes, I did use just regular brake fluid. The book and a lot of the things I've read online says to use grease, but there's a lot of people out there that just use brake fluid and have no issues. So everything is ready to go. I still have to get this obviously mounted on the vehicle. I have some hydraulic hoses and stuff that's coming in, so I'll have that for the next episode. But thanks again guys for checking in, and I'll see you in the next episode of Garage SpeCivic.